Hello everyone. After doing series on healthcare and career counseling, we have come up with series with Educationist. As it is rightly stated, behind every successful school, there is a great principal. So today we have a panelist, an expert, a very passionate educationist, a management graduate holding specialized degree in education management. She also studied early child education program to ensure she was a versatile teacher, being able to effortlessly handle 3-year-olds as much as ease as 18-year-olds. She delivered keynote speeches at various Indian forums, education conclaves, and international universities like in Denmark and Scotland. She writes regularly on education in national newspapers and has contributed to books on education and parenting. She is none other than Mrs.Revathi Srinivasan, Director, Education Singhania School and Principal, Smt.Sulochanadevi Singhania School. Welcome, ma'am.
Ma'am, we'll start the session with you. Everywhere we hear online, online, online. So what's your opinion on online teaching? There are a lot of challenges you see at both the ends. Connectivity, power failure, network issues. You really think it's beneficial to go on online platform?
Very good evening to all of you. I'd just like to say that digital transformation has happened. Whether it was COVID or not, I don't know what was the reason. But over the years, we've been seeing a little disruption of sorts. This came in as a big disruption. But this digital transformation is necessary for upskilling and for reskilling, because that's where the world is headed towards. So I don't see any reason why we should worry about online learning. It is one more method of learning. And especially when times like this, when we cannot take the kids to school, yes, there is a big question about equity. It's about getting facilities for children who are not having the ability to get these kind of services, maybe poor internet connection or economically backward classes of students, or the fact that they live in such remote areas where network connectivity is impossible. It's here that we have to look into what can be done, and that no child is left behind. And I think there are millions of ways by which we can start thinking in terms of how do we connect children with online learning. It could be recorded learning also, which can be given. It can be even oral lessons that can come in. It need not always be through internet. It can be lessons that can reach across to the homes of children. And I think it is the responsibility of each one of us as educators to see how we can reach out to every child. So if there are children in your schools who are saying that I don't have an internet connection, or that we don't even have a mobile phone, let's look at what can be done. Can I reach the notes across to the child's home? One child, or 10 children, or 100 children? And in a village, the space is not too large. I mean, the area is not too large. So reaching such things across, especially after lockdown, is not going to be very, very difficult. So getting them engaged is more important. Getting them to be learning deeply is more important to me. It's not about whether it's online, where they can have online, because that's a way to reach out. But if you cannot, are there other ways by which we can reach out? Can there be CSR projects that can help children get these facilities? Those are areas that we can think about. And see, this kind of a situation is not going to last for very long. But at the same time, 2 or 3 months is a time that we have to try out for different ways and then we can bring them back to classes. Maybe again, you have to rethink how you're bringing them back to classes, but you can. And then you can see how you can reinforce what you have already done, which may not have been perhaps learned very well by the children. So I see hope. I see that it is important for every educator to develop a positive learning culture. If you develop a positive learning organization and a positive learning culture, I'm sure it, really will do well. If we all the time think about the kind of setbacks and the challenges that we are going to face, we're not going to move ahead at all. We're only going to be worrying about the year lost, not about what can be done. And I think it's very important for educators to think positively, think far ahead, and the emphasis now should be actually changing completely. It should shift from syllabus and syllabus completion, assessments and standardized examinations, to deeper learning and assignments which are fun but helps children learn. So that's the way so the whole process of teaching learning has to undergo a change. You can't do what you did 4 months back. As simple as that.
Just adding to that, what do you think, in terms of the screen time for kids at different age groups? What is the screen time you would suggest?
See, for an older kid, I wouldn't mind about 4 hours with interruptions of 15 minutes each. So 40 minutes, 45 minutes max, 15 to 20 minutes gap, again 45 minutes or 40 minutes off, and another 20 minutes gap, and a maximum of 4. For the younger ones, I would suggest 3 hours max. Okay, and that's how it would be. And how does the learning happen for the rest of the day? That may be your next question then. So I'm going to answer that as well. So we have to give children assignments that can be collaborative, that are creative, that are intuitive, but certainly not downloadable, which means assignments that will evoke a lot of thought processes from the children and help them create something out of the knowledge that they have got. So when something they have to do on their own and they're challenged to think differently, children come out with brilliant ideas. For example, finding solutions to some world problems. And I'm sure they'll come across with that very, very beautifully. So they don't again have to go back in the afternoon to work on assignments that are again involving a lot of screen space. I think that need not be done. For the younger ones, there's so much one can do, whether it is music, whether it's dance, whether it is physical activities. If you give them an agenda to do, they just do it because they absolutely follow what the teachers say. Okay, for them, the teachers are gods. So that's the way the younger children see it. Yes, and they like the presence of the teacher. They need to see her or him every day. And that's the reason why they have to come on board. But with them also, there can be so much of learning that one can do by the way of activities. Origami, for example, can teach them not just the craft, but also arithmetic, geometry. So much can be done with origami. So integrated teaching, learning has to happen. So one, you teach something on a particular platform, maybe a geography class, what can be translated into a history class. So if I'm talking about river valley civilizations, I can ask the children to make out of mud small beads of chains that they can make. And that was a kind of jewelry that people used. What is the kind of monuments that they had? So they can make simple models while they are at home. There are hundreds of ways of thinking. For example, can we give an assignment? Can you design a new township? Remember that your township, there has to be a school, there has to be a hospital, a public health care center, there has to be a well so that there is water that comes out. Okay, there has to be a small shopping complex. Children come out with wonderful ideas of what it is. What's that? That's all that children are learning in their social studies, in their science. And we must tell them that you must ensure there's sufficient sunlight at any point of time for every family to get that, or to build the houses in such a way that every house should get sunlight at some point of the day or the other. How beautifully will the concept of science be taught to children? Why can't we give them projects like that? So I don't see why it cannot be done. Why can't this kind of a blended learning happen?
Ma'am, Revathi ma'am, next question to you. What kind of measures, precautions you would take or you would advise other schools to take when the school reopens?
Yes, I think that's something very, very important. And whether the school is reopening in the next 2 months or not, we don't know. But school principals and school leaders have to start thinking about it from today. In fact, one that we have to really think in terms of is safety, security of children. The other is health and hygiene of children, and training sessions that has to happen right from the top to the last person in the school, because everyone must know what they're doing. Measures that we may have to adopt is social distancing, ensuring clean water, sanitation, for example, disinfectant everywhere. So all of these are very, very important measures. The schools have also to plan measures of safety. How are children going to come to school with the social distancing? How will they come in the school buses? How will they come in school vans? How are parents going to drop their children? Are we going to run the class in such a manner that we have very small number, because they're going to be sitting in individual desks? Fortunately, my school, I have individual desks. But even then, not more than 20, 21 in a class, not 20. That's the way we have to count. So how are we going to address that? So, the teachers will have to do the sessions twice over. So how do we help that to happen? Okay. So these are questions that we have to answer for ourselves. And I think it will work very well, because only when I would say that school planning is a thorough done job. We have to make standard operating procedures for the time when children enter school. Parents come to school for any reason. We must have a consent form that gives us permissions of what kind of activities that the child can indulge in. We must get a declaration from parents as well as children as to the past 2 months they didn't travel, the kind of medical history that children may have had or they would have had. All of that, not for any other reason, but for the fact that the school must know what is going with the child. It's very, very important for us, because if the child has gone through any kind of difficulty, we will help the child overcome that. If the child was going through some anxiety, we must help. As a school, we must help. I'm very, very particular that parents, teachers, school work together. You cannot be on either sides of the table. We are around a round table and our child is in the center. So we have to think in terms of that. So what if the standard operating procedures are going to remain in the books? It's going to be of no use. It is so important that this standard operating procedures is followed by everyone, even the peons, the service staff, the support staff, the drivers, the conductors, even if they are contract buses, all of them have to follow that to the T. Only then can we manage to keep this going. And I'm sure if there's so much of awareness and there is education that's happening, then I'm sure people, when they believe in it, they will make it happen. And this is not going to be just today or tomorrow. It's not going to be for a month after school reopens. It's now going to be a part of our lives. We all have to remember that. And therefore, it is our individual responsibility as much as to ensure that we remain safe, we are hygienic, we follow all the norms, we follow all the rules, not just in school, but wherever we go, so that we keep that social distance throughout, so that we don't have any more problems of this kind.
Revathi ma'am, there is an interesting question for you.
Okay.
There is a complete cultural shift.
Yes.
We generally teach students, children, concept of sharing. Now, in this scenario of social distancing, how would you go about it?
Oh, that's a very, very nice question, in fact. I think collaboration, sharing, caring, all of this is very important. But sharing happens not necessarily which is physical. It's not only sharing of, what children miss most is sharing of dabbas, because the tiffins of others are far more interesting than their own tiffin box. Okay, that's the general rule in any school and for any kid. So it's natural going to be that children will be a little disappointed. But at the same time, sharing need not be only about the physical component of it. I strongly feel that sharing should be taught by the way of all your curriculum subjects. Can all values just get integrated as a part of our curriculum? While we are teaching something, we teach them how to share. I'll give you an example. We found so many migrant workers now in this time. 5,000 food packets came to a particular organization to give it off to the migrant workers. There were, however, 7,500 migrants. How many migrants did not get food packets? Which other organization can help in getting these 2,500 food packets? They are doing subtraction, they are doing arithmetic calculations. At the same time, they are learning that in times of such necessity, it is important to serve food to others. Children also learn this fact that when there are lesser packets, then how do we take the help of another organization so that the other migrants are not left? They also understand the difficulty or problems that migrants may face. So let's understand it becomes an integrated study. It becomes an interdisciplinary study. No longer can we do it as a silo-based. Now this is the value. You must always share your things. Today's generation is not going to be a generation that's going to listen to your sermons and say, yes, Mama, I am going to share with everyone I see. They're not going to be that generation. So instead of that, when we talk about these kind of things, I'm sure that remains, majorly in their minds, and definitely children will come forward to share, to care, to be able to understand others' problems. What comes out of this whole thing itself is empathy. I think when the feeling of empathy comes in, you do it through essays that you write, stories that you tell children. All of that must have pathos, they must have emotions, so that children understand it. When they understand emotions, then they'll themselves start building stories which have all emotions. And knowing emotions and being able to express it is very, very important for children. And that's how they start sharing. So they start sharing not just things around them, but they also share their difficulties and make others share their difficulties with them. So then that becomes a more sensitive society that we would have.
Revathi ma'am, a lot of people need to understand about examinations. So how do you foresee changes in the pattern of examination for higher grades?
For grades 10 and 12, of course, it's a board examination. I'm not too sure whether the pattern of the board examinations will change. But certainly, I think the boards, all the concerned boards will consider how they're going to be helping the children do well. Okay, so I think that's some aspect of it that they will really want. I think that's something that each one will work on their syllabus so that it is more tutored for the children who have got a lesser year which is slightly shorter. Having said that, for the rest of the school, till grade 8 and 9, I think It is entirely left to the school. It's very important for us to think about different kinds of assessments and assignments that are more creative and not necessarily just marks oriented. You don't have to have the same number of examinations that you had every year. You can just tweak that whole pattern of examinations so that you have assessments that are meaningful, not being conducted for the sake of conducting an examination. And I think there are hundreds of ways. You have quizzes, you have video examinations. You can show a video of a film and then ask them questions based on the video. You can have an audio and ask them questions on the audio. There are so many ways by which we could do that. And I think that that again comes out with this fact that teachers have to be ever researching, ever learning. If you have a learning organization, you will have a learning school, and you will have learning children willing to learn and wanting to learn. And that's what it should be. So I think teachers, this is your time. This is a huge challenge in front of you. And we as teachers must prove to the world that we are the most creative and the most innovative lot.
Well said. Revathi ma'am, any suggestion, recommendation from your side to the concerned authorities for smooth functioning of this academic year? Anything you would like to suggest?
I think we should take the call of opening schools only after analyzing and assessing the situation. So even if it takes a couple of months more, it's perfectly all right. I think the online sessions that are happening can continue to happen. At the same time, very important that we can reach out, especially in smaller schools and where in rural schools and Adivasi schools, if they are not so much affected, they can be brought to school again in batches so that the numbers are very small and we can ensure that there is social distancing and learning going on. At the same time, I don't think the government should be in a hurry to rush up, think about examination, syllabus completion, nothing of that kind. I'm sure they will be planning on similar lines too. At the same time, I would say that we have to encourage a lot of creativity in schools. And if individual schools are doing something different, I think it's important for us to learn from each one of us. This is a collaborative space. Instead of having one rule for everyone, it is now going to be an individual needs-based thing that we have to address, or a situation that we have to address. If we see certain needs of a particular school, that school need to give the children that particular needs. So the needs of everyone will be different. Every school will be different. And every school is a space by itself. Allow them to grow the way instead of having too many rules and regulations. A few guidelines that needs to be followed has to be given by the government, yes. But just running behind numbers and documentation is not going to be an answer this year. This year is a time to research, redesign, rediscover the entire concept of education.
Revathi ma'am, I want a signing off statement from you, a motivational one for everybody.
I want you all to believe in yourself, because I think that's the way forward. Believe that you can make the change. Believe that all this disruption that may have happened, may have sort of disturbed your equilibrium, is temporary. This phase too shall pass. And I want you all to believe that we all together have to make it happen. Each one of us have to start taking care of little things in lives. Minimalism, to me, is going to be the watchword for all of us. We all have to learn to live a simple lives and have very high thought processes in place, so that we think in terms of larger visions. Vision for our schools, vision for our colleges, and for the country as a whole, the economy as a whole. Let's not think in terms of individuals now. And that's what we have to think. And when we are thinking, also think, how can we be so innovative? let's not keep away and do away with things that we think is not possible and people cannot do it. I think even if you're talking in terms of computer learning and accessibility, there are ways by which we can do it. There are villages so well connected with Wi-Fi. So let's each one of us be that change agent. Let's be the change. That's what we have to be. And more than anything else, I want everyone to believe one thing. Everything that you learn and everything that you do in education is all about wings to fly really high and yet have roots that are strong to keep you grounded no matter how high you fly. Thank you.